to take certain steps doesn't matter. What matters is what is uncovered. So now, I know that you did stipulate to...
You're being asked to unmute yourself. To unmute.
I recognize that there was a stipulation to admission of this testimony, and there must be something in it for you to have stipulated to this, but I will say that stipulating to something that might otherwise have been excluded does not then allow you to bootstrap into admission of evidence that is not relevant, even if it tends to rebut or refute that evidence that came in by stipulation. So that's the premise here. So let's.
Okay,
I
so
want you to understand the court's thinking before you attempt to change it.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that said, the stipulation was entered as a result of the rulings that the court made, because Mr. Durst and his counsel were now in a position where you had told us this wasn't coming in, and we had to make a choice to get in the few bits that might be helpful to Mr. Durst by way of stipulation. Now that the court has seen Mr. Lewin spend over 2 hours telling this jury that if this man had done his job, they would have found out that Kathy Durst had been murdered in the house, and that was the purpose of the examination, Your Honor, and it leaves the jury with the idea that somehow this man was negligent when, in fact, the reason why he didn't seek a search warrant in the house was that he had information from Mr. Durst, albeit that she went on the train. Then he had the information from Cooperman, which was uncontested for 35 years, Your Honor.
All right. Well, still, this is number one. You're trying to bootstrap this, which you have for whatever you have stipulated to this, and now you're trying to, because you've agreed to it. Now you want the right to.
We only agreed
refute
to it because of your initial rulings, Your Honor.
No, my
which
initial.
may I at least make the record?
No, I'll let you make a record in a minute. But
Okay.
let's also be clear about something else, which
Yes, sir.
is that. Again, the point is not whether or not Mr. Durst killed Kathy. That isn't really the point. The point is he a suspect such that he believes, I mean, he may be wrongly prosecuted for this. There may be a reasonable doubt as to his guilt, but no one has the right to kill a witness, and killing a witness is a capital murder, and that is the focus of this crime. If he believes that Susan Berman was a witness in a proceeding against him, that is the focus. So whether he killed Kathy Durst is an intermediate fact that may tend to show that he would in fact be prosecuted. You're taking this a step further, trying to raise a reasonable doubt that he is guilty of that offense, which isn't really the point. It is relevant, but it is on the margin of what the case is about, regardless of how much energy the prosecution has put on proving that point. It's still on the margin of what is important in this case. So with that, you may go ahead and make your record.
Thank you. To a trained legal mind who is able to separate and understand the nuanced position that you just took, Your Honor, that is way different than 12 lay people who are spending weeks deciding in their minds whether he killed Kathy Durst. And the fact is that Mr. Lewin, in a few series of questions, could have established that, in fact, Mr. Durst was a suspect, potentially had the idea that Susan Berman had information about it, without prosecuting the murder case. But that is exactly what he is doing, and we are stuck with it, and we are stuck with jurors, Your Honor, who are not only being infected by the prosecution of a murder for which he was never charged, And that's the reality of the people that we're dealing with, Your Honor. Mr. Lewin is not doing this because he doesn't have a purpose. He has said over and over again in his questions, he killed Kathy Durst. He killed Kathy Durst. That makes Mr. Durst into a monster, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, relevance is decided by elements. It is the relationship to elements of the crime that I will consider when determining.
Then why are you allowing all the surplusage in, Your Honor, most respectfully?
Your stipulation, period.
We
Okay, go ahead.
So you're saying that we objected, Your Honor, previously in our motions, and that was denied. But I'll continue, Your Honor.
Yeah, I think you need to focus, be much more specific, and if you...
Let's look at some of the California cases I cited, Your Honor. If you look at the Livingston case, which importantly quotes the Jefferson, California evidence document or book that you cited yesterday, evidence of a declarant statement that is offered to prove that the statement imparted certain information to the bearer and that the hearer, and that the hearer, believing such information to be true, acted in conformity with that belief. The statement is not hearsay, since the hearer's reaction to the statement that is a relevant fact sought to be proved, not the truth of the matter asserted in the statement.
So you're right. So the point, it would have to be relevant. In other words, the action would have to be relevant.
So your position, Your Honor, is that it's relevant for them to present that to the jury, and we're not allowed to establish why that theory of relevancy to the jury is not appropriate in light of the fact that we know that Detective Struck had 2 live witnesses that placed her in New York. And if you go back to the Chambers holding, Your Honor, we're talking about a real due process issue here.
Let's talk about due process, because due process, I agree if a person's defense depended upon this, but this is not even a defense. It's not even an element of the crime. So again, you're looking about these collateral effects of the admission of evidence, as opposed to the relevance of the evidence. I would not if this were reliable evidence that could tend to raise a reasonable doubt about the charged offense, or including the charged special circumstance, that would be a different story.
Well,
but
put it in context,
that's not what this is.
But put it in context, Your Honor. If he didn't kill her, then Susan's a witness to nothing. Dr. Cooperman said
No, that's not true. He's accused. There are people who suspect him no
he's
matter
not
what.
accused. He's never been charged.
No, but I mean he's suspected.
Oh,
And the other evidence I understand, which is really more the point, is that he expected to be prosecuted, and he believed that based on whatever evidence was out there, he was a new prosecution was ensuing, and he acted upon it. And apparently he's admitted that, and that's really the point. Now, I guess if that's not really a good place for you to argue, since he's admitted that, so you're taking a step away to arguing this other thing that is on the margin of what is relevant. And the second problem here is that I don't know to what extent the reliability of evidence goes into a 352 analysis, the prejudice. But here, this unreliable is being a very diplomatic about evidence that has the I mean, by inference, it's manufactured. So I'm not to judge the truth of the evidence. I understand my role there. I'm not doing that, but it's not only clearly hearsay. It's highly unreliable, and.
But most respectfully,
Yes.
Your Honor, we quarrel with this concept that it's unreliable. We had live witnesses. They were interviewed by multiple police. One of them drew helped draw a diagram or a picture of the person that they saw. He maintained that position for years. The court's aware of another corroborating method used by the police to verify the story.
Right. Go make a record. Go ahead.
Okay.
I just want you to be clear that I think this is far off. I mean, I think this is not close.
I will tell you this, Your Honor.
Yeah.
I have picked up on that.
Yeah. Okay. Pardon my incredulity, but I'm
I
letting you make your
understand.
record. Yes.
The part that's hard for us, Your Honor, is none of us are incredulous, and And so we say that with all respect to the court. Your Honor, I was going to quote to Evidence Code 1280, Evidence Code 1331. The cases that I cited are Livingston, or that I was going to cite, Zavala, and Samuels. I gave the court citations. I'll put them in the record now. 113 Pacific 3rd, 1125 on Samuels. 156 Cal Reporter 3rd, 841. It's a case called Zavala. And then the case that quoted Jefferson is Livingston, and that's 274 Pacific 3rd, 1132, all which provide examples of a court allowing declarations that furthered a police investigation, for example, and the reason why a policeman did certain things. The part I'm having trouble grasping, Your Honor, is if the people put on through the stipulated testimony what they believe is relevant, they're going to argue it to the jury. So essentially, Your Honor is saying, even though I might not have thought it was relevant, they're going to get to argue it's relevant, and we're not going to be able to explain, one, why it's irrelevant, and two, why it's flawed. And when you couple that, Your Honor, with what happened with the Myers, where the people put on two witnesses who had, at the time of the event, said specific factual statements, none of which they testified to, or I shouldn't say none, but majority of which they didn't testify to when they were here, then when showed the statement, said it didn't refresh their recollection, but also said that the policeman was wrong. That in itself sets up the argument for us that what Strzok did was effective. And when they have Mr. Strzok being attacked, it bolsters, I don't want to call them perjurious, but certainly the disingenuous statements of the Myers. And so I would suggest to you, Your Honor, as a way for Mr. Durst to get a fair trial and due process, that the jury be informed that, in fact, through the parts of the conditional exam which are still available, Mr. DeGuerin cross-examined Strzok on most of these issues extensively, that there's an opportunity for the court to cure the damage that's been done by allowing the Myers to testify in a manner that's inconsistent with what the people know they said in 1982. They didn't raise that either. They didn't say to him, didn't you say this? They basically got them to testify completely inconsistent with their interrogations in the early years. Your Honor, I know your position. I've tried to argue this multiple times, but I really think that it's an injustice to Mr. Durst not to have the jury aware of the fact that there were people who saw her in New York, especially when the people have attacked Cooperman on top of it. So this information is corroborative of Cooperman. Now their theory on Cooperman is he didn't know her voice well enough. I mean, Your Honor, at some point in time, we have to be able to tell this jury, Cooperman said this for years and years. He never changed his mind. And oh, by the way, two other people who did know her saw her in New York. It's a question, they can attack that. They can say whatever they want about the fellows in New York. They can undercut it. But that's a question for the jury to weigh, the weight of that. It's not to be excluded from them, Your Honor. And in the context of what's happened now in the trial, we would ask you most respectfully to fashion some method for this jury to know about the folks that saw her in New York. Thank you, Your Honor.
People do need to respond.
Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Color-wise. So, first of all, there is absolutely nothing new here. The first issue, and this is incredibly important, the defense is speaking unintentionally out of kind of both sides of their mouth, and this is what I mean by that. They say that they do not want to admit the elevator operator testimony for the truth of the matter asserted, because they can't. But that's exactly what they want to do. The last argument was basically saying, Your Honor, there are people who saw Kathy Durst, and we need the jury to hear that. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, they ignore the fact. Why aren't they able to present that evidence for the truth of the matter asserted? Because for 5 years, 20 different phone calls, emails, individual calls to each member of their team, things lodged with the court, discussions in the courtroom, where I said, listen, if you want to offer the statements of an unavailable witness, and both those witnesses are dead, all you need to do is let me know, and what will happen is their statements will be offered, but if you do that, so will their recantations and other statements they've made. I said this repeatedly, as the court is aware. I lodged a letter, sent an email, to them finally on September 13, 2019, which they're not going to dispute. The letter says, although we have previously discussed this issue informally, this letter will serve as official notice that despite the fact that we are not legally required, absent an express finding by the court of intentional delay or severe investigative negligence, we are willing to agree to the following procedures with respect to witnesses who were dead or otherwise legally unavailable at the time that your client was arraigned. We make this offer in the interest of fairness and ensure that you are able to provide the best defense possible for your client. And then the email goes on. I'm not going to address the rest of it, but in essence, the requirements are, it says that if a witness became legally unavailable before a defendant was arraigned on November 18, 2016, if they provide notice of their intent to introduce the statement or statements of specific witnesses no later than November 13, 2019, and that should they elect to offer that legally admissible statement of a legally unavailable witness as defined above, all other legally admissible statements will be allowed. I went on to say in the email that I have been bringing this up repeatedly. So the first question is, the reason they are not able to offer that hearsay is because they took a tactical approach and made a tactical decision that in the end, it was going to be worse for them if they presented it. That led to us finally, again, not arranging to subpoena witnesses who were outside of the country that would have, in fact, impeached these statements. And we based our case on that. I gave them 5 years, and then I extended it to November. So that's the first issue. They had the chance to present this evidence for the truth of the matter asserted. Motions were due in this case, Your Honor, more than a year, and the defense still continued to file motions that the court had ordered them filed a year prior. The court was generous and allowed those motions to be litigated. They filed a motion in the middle of opening statement in March of 2020 saying, you know what, we want to bring this evidence in, not for the truth of the matter, but because, in essence, it will corroborate Mike Strzok's investigation. And now we need to back up a step on that. The defense elected to call Mike Strzok as their witness at conditional examination. They elected to do that, and Mr. DeGuerin, in his questions, presented Mike Strzok for the idea that Mike Strzok did a competent and thorough investigation in this case. They did that knowing and having been given discovery of 25 horrendous things he has done in the case, including having sex with one of the witnesses. They then, in the questioning, lobbed it up there and basically said to Strzok, now you did as good a job as you could possibly do on this case. They made their own bed. Mr. Strzok got gutted on cross-examination, not because I'm a good lawyer, but because it's one of the worst investigations I've ever seen. So then we end up facing the situation where he's unavailable. We give them, I have emails back and forth where they agree to the transcript. They agree to it. We make edits, additional edits, based on their issues. We filed a motion very clearly that says that transcript is going to be utilized. It is made clear that that transcript is based on the court's prior rulings. Now, the defense comes in and now they say that trained legal minds are different than 12 lay people. Well, that's a very good point. And the reason that they're saying that is because what they want to do is they literally, after all the opportunities they had to have the statements admitted for the truth of the matter asserted under due process, which they made a tactical decision not to do, they now want to say, Your Honor, we want to admit that not for the truth of the matter asserted. So in essence, the jury is going to be told, people saw Kathy Durst. But you're not to consider that for the fact that they actually saw her. You're to consider that only as it affects Detective Strzok's investigation. Under 352, that is an automatic, you've got to be kidding me. It's again analogous to us trying to bring in a confession of a defendant to then argue, but look at how nice we treated him, and that's an issue in the case. Now, the other problem is Detective Strzok, in his testimony, Your Honor, on 3 separate occasions, said that the reason that he did not investigate further was because of Dean Cooperman. Now, it doesn't matter if a second reason was because of the elevator operators, because even if that's true, Detective Strzok saying, I did not do further investigation because of Dean Cooperman, eliminates their argument. So now we sit here, and now we have attacks on, I didn't even understand this. They're now saying that the mayors testified inconsistently, which the court is here, Your Honor, it's garbage. If they thought the mayors testified inconsistently, then they probably should have cross-examined them on those points. As the court's aware, when they did cross-examine them, basically the mayors rejected every allegation and every point that they made. So, bottom line to this is very clear. 1, the defense had the opportunity to have the elevator employee information put in for the truth of the matter asserted pursuant to stipulation. That offer was extended 5 years prior to the beginning of this trial. They never took it. They repeatedly rejected it. Number 2, they had the ability to challenge in more detail Mike Strzok's transcript. They stipulated to it. They're literally telling the court, Your Honor, as if what they heard yesterday, they're literally saying, oh my God, did you hear what Mike Strzok testified to? How could we have known this? It was recorded and you stipulated to the transcript. There was nothing new yesterday. It's as if yesterday is the first time they actually heard it, which obviously is not the case. They heard it in the courtroom the first time and they saw the transcript. So, for all of these reasons, Your Honor, the court has made this ruling. This is, by my count, the 6th or 7th time that they have brought this issue up. So, with that, Your Honor, we would submit. Appreciate the indulgence. That was for the record on appeal.
So, also, there have been these citations, the idea that a prior identification would be a basis for admitting this prior identification after the fact, or after she is supposedly, after she disappears by someone who knew her under 1238 of the Evidence Code. That requires that the witness testify that he or she made the prior identification. The other premise here is the ancient documents, 1331. I don't believe that applies. I mean, that's primarily for real estate issues, but here it has to be something that I don't think something that's been in controversy for 30 years is then somehow grandfathered in.
None of the hearsay exceptions. So the reason that I did not address the authority they gave is because, number one, those hearsay exceptions would introduce the statements for the truth of the matter asserted, which they cannot do. They are also, as the court indicates, every exception they gave is inapplicable in this case for different reasons. Yep. Prior identification requires the witness to testify. They're not here. The ancient writings exception, for the reasons the court indicated, is also inapplicable in this situation. The cases they've cited are completely inapplicable.
You know, the ancient documents exception is very creative. I got to say that when I saw that, I looked that up. I thought that was good, but I think it's real estate. It's not an ancient document that people disagree about. Mr. Chesnoff, did you want to explain that further? Or you just want credit, accolades for that creativity?
Thank you. That and a subway token will get me in the subway, Your Honor, but I appreciate it. Just wanted to add for the record, Your Honor, ironically, if this case, Kathy Durst's case, was being actually tried in New York, the New York Evidence Rule 8.01b states that the federal and the New York state constitutions require the admission of hearsay not encompassed within the hearsay exception when the declarant is unavailable to testify, the hearsay is material, exculpatory, and has indicia of reliability. So I put that in the record for future reference. But
in New York, you may...
well, that's the ironic part of it, Your Honor. He's being prosecuted ostensibly for a New York murder here, and I've made my record. I appreciate the opportunity.
Not really, and if it makes any difference, I mean, I don't think this is res judicata on that issue either, right? I mean,
No,
if there's a concern about liability, just it doesn't resolve that issue. So, yeah.
I was neglecting to mention one last issue.
Yeah.
Although the court is obviously correct in its statement that we do not technically have to prove that Bob Durst killed Kathy Durst.
Right.
We are absolutely within our rights and within our responsibilities in proving the special circumstance to prove that fact.
Well,
and that's what we're doing.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it's relevant. Clearly, it's not the ultimate fact. It's an intermediate fact. That proof really tends to prove the closely related aspect that that he would be a suspect and he's likely to be prosecuted for a crime because he committed a crime and because Berman as a witness to a crime. I'm not saying that that's irrelevant.
No, the
that.
court is just saying that technically we don't have to prove it, but obviously
Right.
the fact that we are proving it enhances the argument that in fact the special circumstance is true. So with that, Your Honor, we would submit it and hopefully we're ready to go.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, are jurors here? And who's the witness?
It's going to be Elizabeth Jones, Your Honor.
Okay.
Do you want me to have her enter or wait until the jurors enter?
Jurors first.
Okay. He's here.
Please face the flag of our nation and recognize the principles for which it stands. Department 1 is now in session. The Honorable Mark E. Wyndham, Judge, presiding.
Please be seated, everyone. Good morning. Welcome back to Department 1, Inglewood. People versus Robert Durst. Mr. Durst is present with Mr. DeGuerin, Mr. Chesnoff, and we have Mr. Lewin, Mr. Milius, Mr. Balian, Mr. Henderson, Mr. Miata, all present for the people. Our jurors and alternates all are present. I know the people are about to call their next witness, interrupting the video testimony.
Very briefly, we have just a quick stipulation on 6 exhibits that I'm just going to... Oh, 6.
It kept us out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Mr. Balian is so used to doing the stipulations that he
I
was
see.
left out of this
I'll
one.
let any two lawyers agree, and then I'll accept it.
So, Your
Okay,
Honor,
you two did this one. That's fine.
People's next in order, which is going to be 58. What number? 58. So we have People's 58 is going to be a photograph. Just call it the number of Kathy Durst.
That's the right number.
Can we get this on the?
Yes.
We're just trying to get the. For some reason, it's not coming up. One moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
there we go.
Okay.
People's 58, both counselors stipulating, is a photograph of Kathy Durst. People's 59, people in the council stipulate that's a photograph of Kathy Durst at her graduation from nursing school. People 60, the person on the right side, there's a stipulation that's Kathy Durst from medical school. People's 61 is a stipulation that that is Robert Durst and Kathy Durst. People's 62, stipulation that's a photograph of Robert Durst and Kathy Durst. People's 63 is a photograph of Robert Durst and Kathy Durst from their wedding on April 12th, 1973. So stipulated, Mr. DeGuerin?
Yes.
The court accept those stipulations, Your Honor?
Court does accept the stipulation.
People call Elizabeth Jones, Your Honor.
Yes.
Sure that the screen is permitting the jurors to see the witness.
Thank you for
Oh.
pointing that out.
Right, because we're not a video, sorry.
Yes, we'll slide that out of the way, but meanwhile,
Please raise your right hand and be sworn. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Let's pause a moment before we have her state her name so that the jurors can see that.
And I'm not sure about the other one, Your Honor.
No, that stays there. They see, can see under it. Yeah.
For the record, please state and spell your first and last name.
Elizabeth, Elizabeth Jones, Jones.
Thank you.
Your Honor, is there my hearing aid picking up, maybe it's not loud to everyone else, but there's like,
I hear it.
Yeah.
I think you got feedback or something.
I can get.
Let's see. It's pretty loud here, so it must be really loud in your ear.
let's stipulate he doesn't need to hear.
Okay. It's hackers, probably. Okay.
It's coming from,
I'm not sure what we can do here.
Uh-uh.
My microphone is off. Let's see if
Maybe it's this.
No. No, that goes
No,
to,
'cause
no,
they
that
can
goes to
hear
the camera.
No, it's not just me hearing, right? Everyone's hearing.
Yeah, I hear it.
no, I'm wondering if it's coming from his ear.
Oh, it's back here somewhere?
Could be aliens, Your Honor.
I'm the last guy that should be tracking down a sound. I'm a dog with no nose trying to, I will. It is not going to be my area. I'll just deal with it, Your Honor.
Thank you for that. All right, and now if you speak right into that microphone, you can move the microphone, and because of our masks, we need to project a little bit more into microphones so we can all be heard. You may, did you get, did you have her spell her name? She did. Okay, I'm confused. Okay, go ahead.
Ms. Jones, when I say the name Robert Durst and Kathy Durst, do you recognize those names?
Yes, I do.
And do you see Mr. Durst today?
Yes, I do.
Can you tell me where he is sitting and what he is wearing?
He's sitting right there, and he's wearing a gray jacket.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone else is.
Yeah, I'm sure the people in the back of the court can't hear. So can you tip that up and talk right into it?
Okay. He's sitting to my right.
Okay. Indicating the defendant, Your Honor.
Yes, he did.
And can you tell me, how did you originally meet Bob and Kathy Durst?
They hired me to maintain their property.
And was this their property on Hoyt Street in South Salem?
Yes, it was.
And when you say to maintain their property, what do you mean by that?
I was cleaning the house, and we were taking care of the lawn maintenance.
And were you a local in South Salem?
Yes.
And at the time, was it common for people from the city to have weekend places where they would not live in it all the time, and then somebody from town might assist with taking care of the property?
Yes.
And at the time that you met Bob and Kathy Durst, approximately how old were you?
23?
And do you remember when that was approximately?
1980?
And how was it that you met them, if you can recall?
To clean their house and take care of their yard.
Right, no, but no, not what did you, how did you meet them? In other words, what was your connection to the Durst family?
Somebody referred me.
And who was that person?
Janet Fink.
And how did you know Janet Fink?
I knew her from school.
And at some point, Janet Fink moved out to California, is that right?
That's correct.
And is that when you kind of took over for her?
Yes.
And did you know Bob and Kathy Durst before that?
No, I did not.
Can you tell me a little bit about the Durst home on Hoyt Street in South Salem? In other words, can you describe it for us? How large was it, et cetera? What do you remember?
Yeah,
about
it was
the
a
house?
nice lakefront house. Nice fireplace. 1 bedroom.
Fair to say that it was more of a kind of a cottage than a big house?
Yes, it was very sweet.
And so in terms of how often you would clean the house, do you remember?
Yeah, I think it was once a week.
And it sounds like not a whole lot of work to do with 1 bedroom.
Yes, no, it was an easy house.
And can you describe how the house was kept when you would clean it? In other words, what was its condition when you would generally come over?
Oh, it was always well maintained, clean, minimalistic furniture.
When you, if you were to describe it, would you say that things were generally in their places or out of place?
No, everything was in its place.
And you said minimalist. What do you mean by that?
Not much furniture, knickknacks, anything like that.
And if you can recall, was it pretty much just a bed and a dresser in the bedroom and nothing on the kitchen counters?
Correct.
And as far as you knew, did Bob and Kathy Durst use the house much for entertaining?
Oh, I would not know that.
Do you remember, were there a lot of clothes in the house?
No, there wasn't much in clothing.
Do you remember, did you meet Bob or Kathy Durst first?
Bob.
And can you tell me, when you met Bob, how would you describe him?
He was nice.
Were you able to carry on conversations with him?
No, it was just to the point.
Right, so what I'm saying though is, did you and Bob have conversations?
No.
When you say you didn't have conversations, meaning that I'm not asking what you talked about, but was he able to tell you, hey, this is what you need to do, this is what I want you to do when you're here?
No, I just would come in. He was never there.
How many times do you think you had contact with Bob Durst prior to Kathy disappearing?
Oh, probably just a handful of times.
And did you ever have any conversation with him about his marriage or about his life?
No.
Can you tell me about Kathy Durst?
No, I didn't know her.
Did you ever meet Kathy?
One time.
When you worked for the Dursts, do you recall if Bob Durst had a dog?
Yes, he did.
Do you remember the dog's name?
Igor.
And can you tell me, did Bob Durst appear to be attached to the dog or not attached to the dog?
No, he loved his dog.
And is it fair to say that he took very good care of Igor,
Yes,
and Igor seemed to be a priority for him?
yes,
Do you know Bill and Ruth Mayer?
yes.
And who are they?
The neighbors.
And did you ever work for them?
No,
And I assume then, do you just know them from having lived in that town?
yes,
Do you still live in or near South Salem?
yes, I do.
And so how long have you lived in that community?
63 years.
I won't ask your age, but I'm guessing that's probably pretty close.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, when did you become aware of, how and when did you become aware that Kathy Durst had allegedly disappeared?
I was at the house, Bob's house, and 2 officers came to the door and held up the newspaper that she was missing.
And is this, by your memory, is this at or near the time that she disappeared?
Had been at the time.
And when you say officers, have you previously referred to them as New York State Police troopers?
I believe.
And to the best of your memory, these were not, you know what the difference between the NYPD, the New York Police Department, and the New York State Police troopers, you know the difference?
Yes.
And these were not New York Police Department officers or detectives, is that correct?
I would say state police.
Okay. And you were familiar with the state police, or as they're called, troopers, because that's who had patrol responsibilities in South Salem, is that right?
That's correct.
So they came to the door and you said they showed you a, when you say the door, by the way, were you at the Durst residence?
Yes, I was.
And was this some prearranged meeting, or were you just there to do your normal cleaning?
Right, I was just there to clean.
So what you're saying is by happenstance, they show up at the same day that you're doing your cleaning.
That's correct.
And at the time they showed up, prior to that, did you know anything about Kathy Durst being missing?
No.
So you said they showed up, and can you describe what happened?
Well, they held up the newspaper and they asked me if I noticed anything out of place.
And at the time, had you already made some observations regarding the condition of the house that were different?
No.
Did you make some observations at or near that time?
Yes.
And can you describe what you saw about the house at that time that was different than how it usually was?
There was something on the dishwasher.
When you say something on the
It
dishwasher,
looked like blood.
I'm sorry?
It looked like blood.
And I want to ask you, is that something that appeared to you to be recent or fresh?
Yes.
And I want to ask you, are you aware of that it appeared recent or fresh? Because that would be something you cleaned every week.
Right. That's correct.
And so if the, what looked like blood on the dishwasher had been there previously, when you had cleaned the week before, would that have been something you would have noticed?
Yes.
So this was a new observation.
Yes.
So you said that you saw these dark colored, what looked like blood on the dishwasher. Anything else that you saw?
Yes. In the dining room, I didn't know there was hidden panels above a closet. And I noticed fingerprints on them. And the panels were
And
out.
these panels, did you know previous to that they were there and what they were?
No, I didn't know they were there.
So in looking at them, you were able to see that there were hidden panels that you were unaware of because of how they were attached. They looked as if they'd been opened.
Yes.
This is leading, Your Honor. Object to leading.
Foundation, this is
Object to suggesting the answer.
Foundation is a prior statement she's previously given.
No. Preliminary matters are appropriately said.
And so overall,
Ms. Jones.
That was good.
I think it's the microphone.
No, that was
was me. That last one was me.
Okay. That will get to the bottom of that.
The humming is coming from the overhead speakers. I think.
That's weird.
Echo.
For some reason, that's turning on my. What? What?
Can't be me. Mine isn't on anything. I'm muted.
Who's muted?
All right, circumstantially does not look good for me. Oh, no, it's not, was not me. Mr. Milius made some adjustment. I thought I was the cause of it, but our
It was not you.
our ringing friend is back. Ms. Jones, have you previously provided the information that you just testified to investigators? Do you understand my question?
Yes, I have.
So in other words, your statements about the dishwasher and about the observations you're about to give in a moment are things that you discussed, correct, back in 2000 with the New York State Police?
That's correct.
All right, so was there anything else that you noticed besides what looked like a blood stain on the dishwasher and the hidden cabinet being open? Anything else you observed?
At the time that the state troopers were there?
Either at that time or shortly thereafter. I'm referring specifically to toilet paper.
Yes, that was another time. I came in another day to clean, and the front hall had hundreds of rolls of toilet paper.
And let me ask you, was that before the state police had come to alert you about Kathy?
No, that was after.
And at the time, did you have any idea this toilet paper that you saw, what it was from?
No, I did not.
And can you describe specifically what did you see with respect to the toilet paper?
It was bags and bags of toilet paper throughout the front hall.
How many bags?
100, 50.
Had you ever seen toilet paper like that before?
No. And then the following week, it wasn't there.
And when you saw the toilet paper, did you see anything else with respect to whether there had been any cleanup efforts?
No, I did not.
So you see the toilet paper. Did you ask Bob Durst about it?
No, I did not.
How come?
I never would see him. He was only there on the weekends.
One moment. Do you remember when it was that you made the observations about the toilet paper?
Maybe a couple of weeks after the state troopers were there.
And do you recall, you have previously been interviewed in 2000, in 2005, and in 2015, is that correct? Does that sound about right?
That sounds right.
Were you ever interviewed originally when Kathy disappeared anywhere near 1982?
No, I was not.
When I say the name Detective Mike Struck, is he someone who ever interviewed you?
I don't recall his name. Or I don't know.
And when the troopers showed up at the house, did they have a team of like CSI people with them where they went through the house and you know, like you see on TV with a big team of people that are going through and analyzing things?
No, they just came in, looked at what I showed them, and then they left.
And based on their response to you, did they appear to be very interested in what they had seen?
That calls for conclusion, speculation.
Could you repeat the question?
Did the troopers who came in and took the actions that you've said with respect to what they looked at, did they seem very interested in what they had found, what you showed them?
No, I would say no, they didn't seem interested.
And do you recall, if I were to ask you, how long do you think they took to make these observations?
I would say they couldn't have been there more than 5 minutes.
Did they conduct any interview with you?
No, they did not.
Did they even ask any questions?
No.
Now, you indicated that at that time, the toilet paper was not in the house. That occurs afterwards, is that right?
That's correct.
Any idea how long afterward was the toilet paper incident?
Maybe weeks later.
How long?
Weeks?
And as you sit here, do you know how long or no?
No, it wasn't right after, but no, so I'd have to say no, I don't.
And you were asked before, previously, by detectives in 2005, New York State Police detectives or Westchester County investigators, you were asked why you did not ask Bob Durst about what you had seen. Do you recall being asked about that?
No, I do not.
Do you recall telling detectives at the time that you assumed that Bob had cut Kathy up?
I do remember saying that.
Wait a minute.
Sustained. Objection sustained.
Move
Can
to
I
strike.
ask the grounds, Your Honor?
The question. Sustain the objection to the question. There is no answer.
Move to strike. I think there was.
Okay, strike it.
And for an instruction to the jury to disregard.
Your Honor, I just was asking just the grounds for the objection. He didn't give any grounds, and I don't know how to respond. Can you give the grounds for the objection?
Leading, suggestive, conclusory, opinion, speculation.
Yeah, it's actually calls for hearsay because there's no inconsistent statement. So all those grounds, sustained.
Ask for the jury to be instructed to disregard.
Yeah, disregard the question, please. The questions of attorneys are not evidence.
Ma'am? Have you ever had a discussion with Bob Durst about any of the observations that you made?
No.
After Kathy disappeared, was there an incident involving Bob Durst getting rid of Kathy's property?
Yes, there was.
Can you describe what happened?
He gathered all her things together and told me to get rid of everything.
And when you say all her things, do you remember what these things were?
Dishes, sheets, sewing machine, clothing, not much of that. Dishware.
Did it also include her medical books?
Oh, yes.
And the condition of the things that he was getting rid of, what was their, in other words, were they junk or were they in good condition?
No, everything was in good condition.
And what was your response when he asked you to get rid of it?
I told him I would take care of it.
And have you previously said that it kind of felt like it was Christmas?
That's suggesting that. Leading.
Yes, sustained.
Your Honor, it's a prior statement that she's given.
It may be, but you ask her now what she recalls, and if it's different, then you may bring up a consistent or inconsistent statement. But you can't just ask her what she said previously without asking her right now.
Ma'am.
Ask her now.
Ma'am, do you recall specifically what your response was to Bob Durst asking you to get rid of all of these items?
No, not right now.
May I approach? I'm going to refresh the witness's recollection pursuant to Evidence Code Section 12.
Okay, we're looking at, what is this that you propose to refresh your recollection?
I'm going to show her, this is a clip of an interview from March 14, 2005, Bait Stamp 147939, an interview she did with my office. So I'm going to show her her statement.
You say a clip, you mean like a video?
No, I'm just, I'm going to show her, I have it written out. I have the video, Mr. Millies does.
Okay, so when you want to, in my court, is probably every court, you ask, would it refresh your recollection to see a report of a conversation you had? Would it help you remember if you saw it written out? Would it?
No.
Okay.
Well, Your Honor, I don't think a witness in advance, I think I have the right to show it to her and see if it refreshes recollection. If it doesn't.
Well, no, not here.
Under 1237, Your Honor, I think the code's pretty clear.
Sorry. Why, you can try to
I'm-
reason with her that surely she'd remember if she looked at a report of what she said, but, if she says she's not gonna remember, why don't you work on it?
Well, Your Honor, then I...
Gain the assent of the witness.
Your Honor, then I believe then under Evidence Code Section 1235 as prior inconsistent statement, then I would ask to show the clip to her. That would now come in under 1235.
Well, hold on.
We have the clip available.
Yeah, I know. I don't think she's feigning a lack of recollection. She says she doesn't recall right now, and let's see. Why don't you ask her if anything would help her remember?
Well, ma'am, as you sit here, you don't have a memory of what you told detectives back in 2005, is that correct?
I don't remember everything.
And my question is, as you sit here today, do you know for certain if you took a look at what you had said, do you know whether that may refresh your recollection, maybe would not refresh your recollection, but do you know until you see?
All right, so what did I say?
So I assume, ma'am, are you asking
That's
to...
an implied, that's all you need to do.
Okay. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yeah, you may approach. I don't seem like I'm going to be formal, but I kind of am in a way.
So I just want you to read, ma'am, to yourself. Right. Ma'am, does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
And let me ask you, is what you said that you just read in 2005, was that accurate?
Yes.
And did you say, in fact, ma'am, quote, he throws everything out of Kathy's out, all her medical books, her sewing machine, her clothes. He tells me, just take everything and do a junk job, just get it out of here. So I kind of felt like it was Christmas because I'm just going through the stuff. I can't believe he's throwing all this stuff out. Who would throw all this stuff out? He threw everything out. Does that accurately...
Yes.
Does that accurately address your response to being asked to get rid of all this stuff?
Yes.
At that time, ma'am, do you recall approximately how long that was after Kathy Durst disappeared?
Where he got rid of all her things?
Yes.
Or, I would say a couple of months.
And at the time when he asked you to do this, what was your response to being not in terms of acquiring this new stuff, but what was your response when he said get rid of all this?
I was surprised
And why were you surprised?
that he was throwing all her things out.
Oh,
And ma'am, have you had the opportunity, you're obviously at that time you were much younger than you were now, is that correct?
Yes.
And have you had a chance to think back in terms of that experience?
Yes.
And being older now and thinking back to the idea of getting rid of all of Kathy's stuff at that time, does that strike you as odd or peculiar?
Yes, it
Leading
does.
and suggestive of the answer.
okay.
And not relevant her current state of mind about something that happened 40 years ago.
She's being asked, Your Honor,
Yeah,
about...
no, it's an overruled,
Okay,
but
ma'am?
it's on the edge.
And
Overruled.
can you tell me why it is that now in looking back it seems peculiar?
How he threw her things out right away?
Yes.
I think because I experienced that. My husband died and it took me many years to throw his things out.
I want to ask you, ma'am, when I say the name Gilberta Najami, is that a name that you recognize?
Yes, I do.
And when you say you recognize that name, who did you know Gilberta Najami to be?
Kathy's best friend.
And Did Gilberta Najami contact you, or did you contact her after Kathy's disappearance?
She had contacted me.
And did she have a request for you?
Yes.
And what was that request?
Hearsay.
It's not a hearsay because it's not a
Oral-
declaratory
no,
statement.
Yeah, you don't have to
Okay.
explain. It's
All right.
oral.
Do I answer?
Yes, you may answer.
What was the question?
What did Gilberta ask you to do?
She asked me to save the garbage from Bob's house.
And did you actually, in fact, save the garbage from Bob's house?
Yes, I did. I would bring it to my house and she would pick it up.
Did she ask you why she wanted you to save? I'm sorry, did she tell you why she wanted you to save that garbage?
Yes, she was suspicious of Bob.
And pursuant to your responsibilities working at the Durst home, were there items that you removed from the home, from the trash, and ended up leaving for Gilberta to pick up from you?
Yes,
Was one of those items what has been referred to previously as the itinerary?
yes.
Your Honor, I'm going to mark people's next in order.
Where are we?
I think there's some writing on the top of it written by a detective. That's been covered up, obscured, so we just won't see that.
What's the number? 64, people 64.
Yes. Ma'am, do you recognize this document?
Yes,
And is that a document that you recovered from Bob Durst's house?
yes.
And do you recall, as you sit here, specifically where you recovered it?
From the garbage.
And did you recover it near the time that Kathy disappeared? In other words, was this recovered in 1982?
Yes,
Do you specifically remember when it was recovered?
no.
And do you remember, ma'am, was the situation, strike that. Did you continue to work for Bob Durst after Kathy's disappearance?
Yes,
And how long did you work for him for?
well, he had rented the house out and I just continued on with the new people.
Were you ever interviewed by any investigators in this case before the year 2000, 18 years later?
I believe.
You believe you were interviewed. Who do you think interviewed you and when?
It was New York City Police Department.
New York City or New York State?
I believe it was the city.
The city. Do you remember who interviewed you and when that was?
No,
I want to ask you, ma'am, did you find out about the New York State Police reinvestigation that took place in 1999 regarding Kathy's disappearance? Did you find out about that?
yes,
And is the way you found out about it, is that when you were called in by detectives in 2000 and interviewed?
yes.
Did you know anything about the reinvestigation before they contacted you?
No,
And did you speak with detectives at the time?
yes,
And ma'am, in the statements that you have given, both to detectives, you also spoke to Andrew Jarecki and Mark Smerling, is that right? The producers for All Good Things and the Jinx?
yes,
And to the best of your memory and ability, have you been honest with individuals that you've spoken to?
yes,
You also spoke with myself and investigators in 2015, is that correct?
that's correct.
And is it fair to say that the interview with detectives and Mr. Bailey and myself went into substantially more detail than your previous interview with investigators?
Yes.
When I say the name Susan Berman, is that somebody that you know?
No, I do not.
When I say the name Morris Black, is that something that you know?
Do I know?
Yes. Do you know the name?
Yes.
Is that correct? Do you know anything about, other than what you may have read or heard, about Bob Durst and Morris Black? In other words, do you have any information from Mr. Durst, for instance, about Morris Black?
No.
And you have no information from Mr. Durst at all about Susan Berman either, is that correct?
No.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, I want to ask you, how do you feel about testifying today?
I'm nervous.
Did you want to testify?
No.
How clear did you make it that you did not want to testify?
To you?
Relevance.
Yeah.
Relevance.
Overruled.
Correct.
I try to make it clear.
And were you told that you didn't have a choice, that either you could testify voluntarily or you would be compelled by subpoena?
Yes.
And is that why you're here?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor?
Cross-examination, Mr. DeGuerin.
Good morning, Ms. Jones. My name is Dick DeGuerin, and I represent Bob Durst.
Good morning.
I want to go first to the thing that's still on the screen. This piece of paper that has some writing on it. It starts with Monday and then Tuesday and then Wednesday. And it has
I think if you want, Mr. Gunn, you can freeze it and then pick it up yourself so you can see it if you want.
okay. No, I don't want to.
Okay.
There's some writing on the lower right-hand corner of it.
Yes?
It doesn't seem to be the same as the rest of the writing.
No.
Is that a fair statement?
That's correct.
Did you put that on there?
No, I did not.
Your Honor, is there any way that,
Have you,
1 second, is there any way, because of my hearing aids, whatever that sound is there any way we might be able to figure it out?
They're working on it.
Oh, okay, great.
You may continue, Mr. DeGuerin.
My
you
apologies.
previously said that you found this some 8 or 10 days after Kathy disappeared. Is that about right?
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that Mr. Durst was asked by the police in New York City to reconstruct where he had been on the days following Kathy Durst's disappearance?
No.
Does it appear to you to be a list of places where he was on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I can't tell what that other one's?
That's going to call for speculation.
Sustained.
1 moment.
Sustained.
Honor, Mr. DeGuerin and I, we will stipulate that this is an itinerary written by Bob Durst sometime after he was contacted by the
After he
authorities.
contacted the police.
And after his interactions with the police, where he made out a list.
Now, wait a
of-
minute. You just said stipulated it's his writing. It's plainly his writing.
Right, okay.
The timing is after he contacted the police.
Sure.
Okay, the
We're more
court
than happy
accepts
to
that
see
stipulation.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you must accept it too. It's written by Robert Durst after he contacted the police. Okay.
Makes sense that a police officer investigating her disappearance would want to know where Mr. Durst was or said he was after she disappeared. That makes sense, doesn't
That
it?
lacks foundation with this witness.
You understand the question?
Yes,
All right, and your answer?
yes.
Okay. Okay, we can take that down now, thank you. There we go. I believe you said you had very little contact with Kathy, maybe saw her one time,
That's correct.
but you saw Bob Durst more often than that, didn't you?
We usually talked on the phone.
But you did see him from time to time at the house in South Salem,
Yes,
and you said that Bob Durst asked you to get rid of some stuff of Kathy's,
that's correct.
and that was a couple of months after she disappeared? Or your best estimate of when it was? She'd been gone for quite a while, hadn't she?
I've been gone?
I didn't hear what you said. My question is, she'd been gone for quite a while when he said that, didn't he? Wait a minute. She had been gone for quite a while when he told you to get rid of her stuff, right?
Maybe it was months.
Okay, March, if she disappeared February 1st of 1982, then March, of course, would be a month or so. Do you remember whether it was in the middle of March or the end of March?
No,
All right. He was angry that she had left him, wasn't he?
That's going to call for speculation, also hearsay, also outside the scope of cross, also assumes facts not in evidence.
Well, when he told you to get rid of it, didn't he appear angry that she'd left him?
I didn't think that.
Now, the New York State Police, 2 troopers, came to the house, and you were not expecting them, correct?
That's correct.
At the time they came to the house, you did not know that Kathy had disappeared.
That's correct.
Did you normally clean the house during the week or on the weekends, or what was your schedule then?
It was during the week.
So, as best you recall, where in the week following February 1st, 1982, did the police, the New York State Police, come to the house? Was it the next week?
It was whenever it was written up in the paper on the front page. That's how I recall it.
Was the write-up that you saw, that you, if you can recall, was the write-up about how Mr. Durst had offered a $100,000 reward for information as to her whereabouts?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, your information, I think we can agree that that newspaper was a couple of weeks after her disappearance. Does that help you with knowing when the state police came there?
Your Honor, that's an improper, if Mr. DeGuerin wants a stipulation on the timing, I think we could potentially do it, but that's not the way to do it.
Well, at any rate, it was, you were a little surprised when 2 New York State troopers knocked on the door, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
And did you let them in?
Yes, I did.
And when they came in, by the way, were they in uniform or were they plainclothers?
I believe they were in uniform.
All right. Police officers.
Yes,
Obviously, more training than you had in law enforcement matters, correct?
did you repeat the question?
You were 23 years old, I believe, at the time,
Yes,
and these New York State troopers obviously had more training in law enforcement than you did,
that's correct.
and you showed them what you thought was a stain on the dishwasher or refrigerator?
Dishwasher.
Dishwasher. You showed them a stain on the dishwasher, right?
Yes,
And they told you it was not blood, didn't they?
That's gonna call for hearsay. It also assumes facts not in evidence.
Well, you've described at Mr. Lewin's invitation what you considered to be their reaction. Their reaction was, it wasn't blood, wasn't it?
It's hearsay.
Sustained.
Reaction, I'm asking now, Your Honor.
Okay, sustained. As phrased, her reaction's okay, but imparting a fact into the question is not okay. So you may ask it in a different way.
At 23 years old, you saw a stain, and you thought it looked like blood, right?
yes,
But you showed it to the troopers,
that's correct.
and they didn't take a sample of it.
No, they did not.
Did that indicate to you that they didn't think it was blood?
That's correct.
All right. And you said there was a panel that you noticed on a wall someplace
In
that
the
you
dining
hadn't
room.
noticed before
In the dining room.
in the dining room. And the panel, you showed that to the police.
That's correct.
Do you know if they came back and, excuse me,
Yeah, one moment, one moment. I have the article that Mr. DeGuerin has referred to. There's a stipulation that the article is dated February 9th, 1982. Let me just make sure as I look at this because it's very small.
You want to mark this as an exhibit then?
No, I think
we're just getting to the date.
I think it's a stipulation that the article that she saw was February 9th, 1982. Is that so stipulated, Mr. DeGuerin?
Well, I don't know if that's the one she saw.
Well, okay, then.
Well, there's the one, I don't know if that's the one that she saw, but the one that you saw, you can put that down, it's not an exhibit.
What do we-
The one that you saw, do you remember that it had a $100,000 reward for information leading to Kathy's whereabouts?
I believe so.
Okay. And we have a stipulation that there was an article on
Or
February the
it
9th.
could have been a different number. It was just a reward. Don't know if it was the 100 million.
No, it wasn't 100 million, 100,000.
Mr. DeGuerin, do you want the stipulation that an article appeared in the New York Post on February 9th, 1982?
There are several articles, and that one, I'll accept that. There was an article on February the 9th.
Okay, let me just make the stipulation. There's a stipulation that an article appeared in the New York Post on February 9th, 1982, entitled "Property Tycoon Offers 100G for Vanished Beauty."
So stipulated?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, then that's established as well.
Okay, so to set this scene, these troopers knock on the door and they show you an article from the newspaper, headlines about a reward being offered, right?
Yes,
And you invite them in and show them the two things that you have testified about this to this jury. First, the stains that their reaction indicated they didn't think it was blood. And second, the panel that you saw in the dining room, did you say?
that's correct.
Okay, and they looked at that.
Well, they had to climb up on a ladder to look at it.
Climbed up on a ladder.
That's correct.
Where was this panel?
It was above a closet
In the
in the
dining room?
dining room.
All right. So, these troopers, did you get the ladder for them?
It was right there.
Well, where was the ladder?
It was a chair that you would flip and it would turn into a ladder that you could reach up there.
Okay, one of these kind of kitchen stool ladder things that there's a stool, or you can take some steps out of it and step up on?
It was nicer than that, but that's what it was.
It wasn't like a carpenter's ladder where you...
No, no.
It
It
was
looked like a piece of furniture, and then you would turn it,
Oh.
it would become a ladder.
a piece of furniture that you could use to step up to, if you had to, for instance, reach a light bulb or something above your ordinary reach.
That's correct.
And the police looked at that.
Yes, they did.
Did they take it with them?
No.
And they ask you questions, right?
No.
Is it that you don't remember whether they ask you questions?
I don't believe they asked me questions.
I understand that it's been almost 40 years now, 39 years since this happened, but are you saying that these two police officers just came to the door and didn't ask any questions, showed you the newspaper and didn't ask any questions?
The only thing they asked me, if anything looked out of place. So
And
that's-
nothing was out of place?
Well, I just pointed those two things out to them, and then they left.
And then sometime after that is when Gilberta Najami asked you to save the trash.
That's correct.
And so it was sometime after that, after Gilberta Najami asked you to save the trash, that you found the piece of paper that's been put on the screen, it's in evidence here, that looks like a list of days and where Mr. Durst was on those days.
That's correct.
How often did you see Bob with the dog, Bob Durst with the dog Igor?
Well, if I came to the house and Bob was there with the dog, he would leave while I cleaned the house. So,
Okay.
not often.
So Bob took the dog with him when he left?
Or sometimes he left the dog behind and he went out.
And it was a nice dog,
Yes,
big, furry, lots of hair,
yes, he was.
and a very gentle dog.
Yes, very nice dog.
And you observed Bob's interaction with the dog, and it was like a loving relationship, right?
That's correct.
You never observed Bob with Kathy, though, did you?
No, I did not.
Now, one other thing, the toilet paper. How many weeks, or maybe months, after you learned that Kathy had disappeared, did you see this stash of toilet paper in the entryway? By the way, it was at the entryway, right?
That's correct.
Where you would come in from the grocery store?
Yes, it was.
or the provision store or whatever, if you would enter the house after going to the store and have some bags with you, that would be a place where you could drop the bags when you first entered the house?
Well, it was off the little vestibule into another room.
Okay.
So it was a second room.
Now, out here in California, it's a pretty warm place year-round, and there's not many vestibules. A vestibule, for the jury's information that don't know, is a place right in the entranceway of a house in colder climates where you can come in and shed your outer garments, right?
That's correct.
Almost like a mud room or something like that.
That's correct.
And it's a place where if you come in from the store, it's logical to put stuff there.
Right, but it wasn't in that room, it was in the room in front of that vestibule. It was another
Beg your pardon, I
area.
thought you said it was in the vestibule.
Well, it would be it was like a room off the front door.
Okay. Well, you mentioned vestibule. Is it close to the vestibule?
Yes,
All right. So if you came in from the store, you'd go first into the vestibule and then
and then into this other room.
where the toilet paper was.
That's correct.
And it was there one day,
Yes.
and then it was gone.
The next week when I came, it was gone.
And again, I'm trying to get your best recollection. This was after the police had been there?
Yes.
And how long after the police had been there did this happen?
Maybe it was a month, weeks.
And when you saw the toilet paper, a month or weeks after the police had already been there and you had pointed out the stain that they seemed to be uninterested in, did you clean that stain?
Yes.
What'd you clean it with?
A cleaner.
So if we presume that the toilet paper that was there to clean that stain, you'd already cleaned the stain, right?
Take your pick.
Okay, I'm going to sustain the objection.
How much longer after February, March, was it when Mr. Durst began renting the place to others?
Could have been a year.
Okay.
I don't know on that.
And how much longer did you work there cleaning the place after he started renting it out to others?
I just continued on with the new people.
I'm sorry?
I continued on taking care of the house with the new people.
The new people that were renters?
Yes.
Did you continue after the house was sold?
No.
How, do you know when the house, Mr. Durst sold the house?
No, I do not.
What happened first? Well, no, let me put it another way. Mr. Durst moved out, and then renters started coming there, right?
That's correct.
And you think that was about a year after Kathy disappeared?
I'm not certain.
Well, let's put it this way. When did you stop working at the South Salem house?
I believe it's when he sold it.
Okay, so when was that?
I don't know.
Well, was it a year, 2 years, 3 years after February of 1982?
I have no recollection.
Where did you start working after that?
I continued on working. I don't know the time that he sold his house.
You continued on working where? Not at his house, right?
No, I had other jobs.
Did you have other jobs cleaning houses?
Yes,
Was that your business at the time?
yes,
And you, the Durst house was one of the houses that you cleaned?
that's correct.
So there's nothing about a change of job that would suggest to you when it was that he sold the house?
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Redirect examination? May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
You are excused. It's close enough to 10:30 that I think we could take our morning recess for 15 minutes or so. Let's go until 10:40. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on this case. We'll see you at 10:40.